Welcome to the November 4th Eclipse OpenJ9 community call. Just a reminder to please add your name and affiliation to the list of attendees so we know who's been attending the calls. It just gives us a chance to reach out and track what kind of community engagement we're getting with these calls. And additionally, we'll record these calls and they're made available on YouTube the next few days. So if you can't catch the talk live or the discussion live, you're welcome to review it afterwards as well. So for today, we have our agenda, and we're fortunate to have a lightning talk, the CANOSP students. So before we jump into that, I'll just pause for a minute and give people an opportunity to bring up any community-related topics they want at this point. This isn't your only option. If you have something that does come up, feel free to add it to any other business section at the end of the agenda as well. So I'll just take a pause here for a second. All right, then let's hand things over to the CANOSP team. I will stop sharing at this point, and one of you can take over and start with your lightning talk.
Okay. Can everyone see my screen and hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, awesome. So today we're going to be talking about the Eclipse OpenJ9 Perf Tool. So we'll get into why we're here and who we are. So CANOSP is an academic program that connects top students from Canadian universities to work on open source projects over the course of a semester. They're kind of sponsoring our project here, and we are led by Andrew and VJ. They're our mentors. And with that, I'm going to get into personal introductions.
Hi everyone, I'm Amy and I'm studying computer engineering at the University of Alberta.
And I'm Anas and I'm studying computer science at University of Alberta.
I'm Harrison. I'm studying computer science at the University of Alberta with bioinformatics.
Vivian, I'm from UBC Vancouver campus and I'm in my BCom for business and computer science.
Okay, so what is the perf tool? So really it's just a performance profiling tool that gathers various data about Java systems. So right now it takes information from the JVM environment using APIs such as JVM TI, JNI, and information from the Linux system such as through perf, Linux perf, and outputs it into a format that we hope can be ingested by AI machine learning algorithms in the future to provide code and suggestions to the developer. So how our tool fits in is that it provides the communication needed between the JVM, the system, and the remote AI machine learning interface. So as we will get into in the next few slides, it is going to be a client-server interface with this agent, and it doesn't have to be fed into AI machine learning. It can also be ingested for human consumption as well.
So here's a quick look at our project plan. So starting over in the red box, we first wanted to create a JVM agent that will allow us to record the key performance metrics. So to gather the performance metrics, we used JVM TI APIs and the Linux perf tool. Then these gathered metrics should be formatted in a way that's easy for consumption by the AI system. So our tool output the data to a JSON file. We also wanted to provide the client-server interface to send the data to the AI system. So to do this, we used TCP sockets to send data from the agent to the client, and as well any requests from the client to the agent. After these steps, we would like to add preliminary tagging to the gathered metrics for training the AI. And as well, we will feed the training data to different machine learning algorithms. So these last two steps, we plan to explore more in the last month of our project.
Sorry, I was on mute. So just to continue off of what Amy was saying, Our progress to date is that we've started creating this JVM agent that's recording our key metrics. So some of the data we're collecting is the perf data from Linux. So things like the PID, the program name, the time, cycles, addresses, etc. The object allocation data, so object type names, the size, the allocation rate, and backtrace, as well as method entry data, which we're currently working on, and contended monitor data. And so with all of these, we're able to configure what data we want to be collecting, as well as turning on and off backtrace support. And we're working on configurable sampling rates as well. And so all this is configurable either in a commands input file or interactively. And we'll show samples of what data we can collect later on in the presentation. And so the next step that we've done is that we've been able to format the data we've collected into JSON format. And so first, the data is collected from the agent and perf, and it's sent through the server to whatever clients are connected. And then these JSON objects are also recorded and output into a logs file. And then hopefully with that, the data logs will eventually be fed into the AI system to analyze the performance. And the last thing that we've completed is the actual client server interface. And so this is managed by a TCP server. And so how it works is when the agent starts up, the server is started and it'll handle the recording of all the data metrics. And then the server will allow clients to connect, and all the clients that are connected will receive the data. And so any TCP client can listen in on the server port to receive data. And there's two modes for this. As I briefly mentioned earlier, there's the headless mode and interactive mode. And so the headless mode will take in a commands file and pass it into the agent to collect whatever metrics and configurations that we're requesting. Whereas the interactive mode is done live, and so the connected clients will request what metrics they want for the agent to collect.
All right, here's an example of command file and some data, the logs, recorded in the logs. So on the left is an example of a commands file that would be used in the headless mode. You can specify different JVMTI events to gather, and you can also specify time delay. So say start in 2 seconds kind of thing. And then for perf, you just specify how long you want to perf record the system performance at the next level. And then on the right, we have an example of the data gathered for object allocation. So you have different metrics such as object allocation rate, backtrace, and type name, and more in that. And here's an example of the data recorded from a perf record session. And this one has a lot of useful metrics that you can look at. So you can see how many cycles, and you can also see which processes are running, PID. And yeah, and there's a lot of these. Next. All right, now it's demo time. That will take over screen sharing. All right, hopefully the font is big enough. So here's an example of running the agent on a Bumble bench. For those familiar with it, it's just a benchmark tool. So here we have the agent itself, and then we have the commands file that's passed, the logs file if you want to specify it, and also a port number. And now I'm going to be running it on the empty bench. Also, before I do that, actually, I'll just show you real quick the commands file that I'm running it on. So just a couple of different commands for monitor event and object allocation. events, and very similar to the example. And so we're going to run that real quick. And for this, the bumble bench, the empty bench just runs for 10 seconds, basically a while loop, and I'm going to be gathering different data. So now that it's done, you can check the logs file for what has been recorded. So this is just finalizing server messages, and here's an example of object allocation. So there's a lot of object allocation, as you would assume, and just different metrics, object allocation rate, type name. Some of these names are out of date. We'll change them soon as we go on. None of these are finalized, but yeah, this is object allocation. All right, now I'm gonna do the same. Since that was the headless mode, I'm gonna run this without commands file and just send over command over TCP client. And so to do that, I'm just gonna get rid of the command file option. That way, the agent knows to expect commands over the client. So this is running on port 9114. So just set that up, and apologies, I got some command file that I'm already saved. Save us time. So now I'm going to start it, connect over TCP, connection succeeded, send a message. So this is going to tell the server to collect object allocation events. And it receives it just as in the logs file. So this is exactly the same as what is recorded into the logs file at the end. Alright. So that's the interactive mode. And that's it for the demo on my end.
So just a quick technical summary for the tool you just saw. So this tool was coded using C++, and our dependencies are the JVM-TI and the nullmen.json library. And just a quick side note, the nullmen.json library is MIT licensed. We also have continuous integration set up using GitHub Actions, and our build system uses CMake. And just at the bottom of the list there, we also have the link for our GitHub repository, where you can see our progress so far. So just to go over our next steps of the project. So for the final month or so of our semester, we would like to accomplish these following tasks. So first, we would like to give users the option to gather even more performance metrics. And then we would like to open a PR to the OpenJ9 project. And as well, like we mentioned earlier, we would like to investigate applying the output data from our tool in machine learning and AI. Finally, we hope you are now interested in contributing to and working with us on this tool over the next month, as well as continuing work on it after the semester is over. And that concludes our presentation for today. Thank you everyone for listening, and we are now open for any questions.
That was a really cool presentation. Thanks for giving that. I just have a question around the overhead. Do you have an idea of what kind of performance impact running with your tool has on a typical application?
As of now, we don't actually have metrics to tell you. We do try to keep as light as possible, so this doesn't add much of a memory overhead. But we'll definitely look into gathering more metrics to see exactly how much overhead there is.
I think it should be fairly configurable because I think there'll be some options for the sampling rate for things like object allocation, whether you want the back traces or not. So you should be able to vary the overhead depending on the amount of information that you want to gather. It's all done with the JVM TI APIs, and the APIs and capabilities that they're using don't put the JVM or JIT into any debug or stress modes. It all keeps everything in the normal paths.
Any other questions?
Oh, this is
I have a
really
question.
cool. Is this given it's JVMTI, although you're targeting OpenJ9, is the plan that one could use this for any JVM implementation?
I can field that one if you guys like. So the tool as currently written will work with any JVM that is compliant with the JVM TI specification at Java 8 level or higher. It's likely that some of the additional metrics that the students are interested in may use extensions to JVM TI that are
I think I got my answer anyway, even though Andrew, we lost you at the end. It sounds like this is something that has a broader application than just OpenJ9, but that it can be tuned to and the plan would be to use the extensions for JVMTI extensions to give you even more information about OpenJ9. This is great work. Thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you.
Hi, I have a question, and first off, great job so far. This is some really cool stuff that you guys shown. As my question is regarding machine learning and AI, have you guys put in thought that it's going to be a classification regression problem or reinforcement learning problem? AI has put in thought on that?
As of now, we haven't explored the machine learning AI part of the project yet, so I'm afraid we don't have an answer for that right now.
Okay, that's cool. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
Just to quickly expand on that also, I believe there's a student at University of Toronto, I believe, that a grad student that was also working with us on this part. So we'll probably talk to him soon about where he wants to head with this.
Okay,
There's a research collaboration with the Ontario Institute of Technology, University of Ontario Institute of Technology. So there's a few people that are getting interested in it. But
Great. Thank you so much for giving the talk today. At this point, we'll transition back to the usual agenda. Just a reminder that we would love to have other lightning talks as well. So if anybody has a particular one that they'd like to give, I see we have potentially a method handles talk targeted for mid-November. So if Babmeet or Jack or Lykoon or any of the other Nazim anyone else involved in that work who'd like to reach out and get something scheduled, please let me know, and we'll see if we can get a more firm date for that.
Hey Dan, I think we should be ready in 2 weeks to present the lightning talk on the new OpenJDK method handles.
Okay, so I will tag you in for November 18th.
Yep, thank you.
Take a quick look at the user-raised issues. I see that most of these have had some attention and responses in the last few days. Is there anything that we need to call out or discuss today? Then we will, just a reminder around the help wanted and beginner issues, please be using those tags to make sure that the project is open and welcoming and that there are good starter tasks for people who do want to get involved in OpenJ9. We'll pull up the dashboard and take a look at the download trends. We look at the OpenJ9 trends. We seem to have leveled out on downloads over the past day, peaking around the usual 55K that we've sort of peaked at. Compare that to the hotspot download trends, seeing similar rise and similar peak there, and sort of an overall fairly stable download rate. Expanded this earlier when I was looking to about 3 months. You see there's sort of a general up and down trend around any given day, but that the numbers stay fairly stable on the rates. So it's good to see. Hopefully that continues and the OpenJ9 number continues to go up. Any other comments or questions around the download stats?
Just a comment that the Docker Hub rate limiting kicked in on Monday, so glad to see, or I don't see anything particular that shows that changed the trend at all, so that's good to see.
Yeah, and I guess time will tell on that, on which were affected by that. So then if we jump back and take a look at our upcoming releases, we have the 0.24 release coming up in January with a code split of December 6th. So I'll just pull up that milestone because we have 52 open items in there coming up on about a month away from the code split. There's a lot of things in here that have been moving forward. So we'll need to see what of this we can get burnt down and closed out for that code split date. Just a reminder to all contributors to be looking at this and helping to bring this list down so that we're ready for the upcoming release. Slightly concerned by the number of blocker items that are in here. I'm seeing 5 or so that have been opened over the last couple of days.
They all got resolved last night.
Because, yeah.
Okay, so they are getting closed out.
Yeah, I assume somebody will close them because they should all be resolved now.
Okay. Well, that's certainly relief to hear because I was slightly concerned by the number of these that had opened up over the last couple of days.
Yeah, there's actually there's some byte swap changes that went in on Friday, and they caused all of these blocker failures, plus a couple more that were already closed.
Okay.
So I think there was 3 OMR fixes and 2 or 3 OpenJ9 fixes that have all gone in to fix them all.
Okay, and there'll be a cleanup pass over this then, I assume, to close out these issues?
Yeah.
And then a reminder that we have the Java 16 release coming up early next year. Right now, there's only 18 items in here, but a good reminder to be looking at what needs to be changed and making sure that we're prepared for that release as well. We need to pick some dates for that release. Just looking at the time, it doesn't have to be done on this call. We can take a look and figure out some dates and see if we can get them tagged into here as tentative and agree on the next call. Shelley, do you want to give us an update from Adopt?
I didn't update the minutes, but just as a heads up, we will be enabling some additional testing at the project. I expect that will mean there'll be a little flourish of some OpenJ9 issues opened relating to it. Also, the AArch functional testing, we should have the JDK8 stuff enabled shortly, so expect that. I'll send a link into the Adopt channel for anything that's seen from that new stuff.
I assume Daryl and Kono-san are aware and prepared for this?
I presume so. I think the other thing that came up was a question from Daryl about JDK8 AArch XL builds at Adopt. Those have never been enabled. So I think Simon replied with, if we want to enable those or not, we'll have to look at what additional burden that is on the farm. I presume you'll want to enable them, or where are we at with no longer needing XL builds?
Looking who's on the call who may be in a better position to give an update on that than I am these days. So, Sharon, do you have an update there? Okay. Well, you're on mute now. If you're able to come off mute and give an update, that would be great. Otherwise, from what I've been able to tell, tracking the issues, work is going on to combine to a single DLL, compiling or a single package, but compiling the GC twice. There's been some performance experiments done on that to make sure that everything is coming out where it's expected. The last thing I saw there seemed to indicate that the results were looking pretty good. So I expect that it's a matter of extending that to the other remaining platforms and getting it enabled. So I hope that it's coming.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah, so what you said is accurate. Just wrapping up some performance tests to confirm that there isn't a regression for GC throughput, and just wrapping up some decisions around the verbose library, if we want to split that into full and compressed, or if we can move some things around so that we can avoid linking to GC libraries directly. And the initial set of changes will work with CMake. So once that's in, more work will be done for the UMA side of things.
So is there a target date that you're working towards, Sharon?
I guess there's not really an official target date, but the plan was to get those changes in by the end of this month.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'll make sure we have all the functional testing running on AArch 64 at the Adopt project, and if by the time that's all running and we see that we have capacity, I'll check in here with the OpenJ9 team before I go and turn on the Excel builds to see where we're at.
And Sharon, just to confirm, the focus so far has been on JDK 11, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
With this change, I guess we will still have need testing for compressed and full. We just won't need a special build for Excel, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's been a while since we discussed that. Did we resolve the conversation about who will handle the double testing, if it'll be on the build pipeline side or the test pipeline side?
Lan's not on the call, but in conversation with Peter and Lan in the past, I think we had well, maybe we should table this and bring it back to next week's call. Put it on the agenda to just summarize that conversation. I know we're over time here.
If I recall correctly, I think it was test side. We can talk later.
Yeah, I believe so as well, but I don't actually believe we're going to need full duplication.
Redundancy.
So I've added it to the bottom of the agenda. We can pick it up again in the next meeting.
Thanks.
It's a good plan, Shelley. Any other updates from Adopt?
No.
Adam, do you want to give us an update on the machines?
Sure. There's still one Windows machine we're monitoring for issues. Give it a couple more days. Hopefully it's fine. The ARch64 machine is back. Joe fixed it. There was an issue after we installed Docker. It installed another package which prevented remote login, so he was able to log in from the console and fix it. And there's an open issue to increase the Artifactory space at UNB so that we don't have to, so that we can keep the same amount of builds there, so that we don't run into issues running grinders and SDKs being in one place and not the other. So I think that's in plan for this coming week, but it's sort of low on priority, so depending on how things go. That's about it for me.
Any questions for Adam? Right. Looking at any other business, do we have an update on the method handle work?
So the update is there was a blocker issue with the one-slot resolution. Transitioning from a two-slot solution to a one-slot solution led to a seg fault, which took quite a bit of time to be, the issue took quite a time to be identified, and I think we targeted it to a GC problem, where I think we were not using the right function to store the resolved array indexable object into the slot. So I think we know what the issue is, so it should be resolved pretty quickly. And for pending work, I think there are 9 open issues and pull requests from the VM and Jet side, and we are targeting for the end of November to be functional and with builds enabled to some extent. And I think this sums up the update for the new method handles. Back to you, Dan.
Just one question on that. So with that seg fault being resolved, that PR on resolution will be ready to review hopefully this week?
That is correct. I will get an update from Jack and then get back to you.
Thanks. Devin, is there an update on the CMake migration?
Yeah, I have the PR open to add the metadata into the DLLs for Windows, and that's the last thing that's needed there to just flip the switch. I'm still grinding out some issues on ZOS, and then also fixing some stuff up on the OMR side.
So I see here that the target we're aiming for was the January quarterly release. So that's got a code split of December 6th. Are we on track to make that?
The Windows stuff, yes, because it's just that metadata patch, and that's is a fairly simple patch, and so I don't expect that to be caught up in review for too long. The ZOS one is trickier to estimate because it's always hard to kind of figure out. I mean, it's going to be, I think, getting the build running is pretty close, but it's hard to say once that build is finished if there's going to be any test regressions in it.
Okay, so ZOS is less of an issue from a quarterly release date. Is that the only platform at this point that's still outstanding on JDK 11?
There is the RISC-V stuff. I don't think hasn't really been looked at.
Okay, but the AArch64 is done.
The AArch64 works from a straight compile. There's also the cross compile, but there is the cross compile stuff that needs to be have a better solution there, and that also is shared with the RISC-V stuff.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like we're getting very close to having this complete for the non-cross compile case on JDK 11, so that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Marius, is there an update on the Helm and operator discussion?
Hi, I was on mute. So a short update. So I provided a review for the Helm chart PR to Chris. That many things that he has to work on. And Raghu has put a new version of the user experience documentation. Fine. Beginning of that PR. That's all.
Thank you. In terms of the microjit update, Scott, is there anything you want to call out here?
Nothing specifically at this moment. Just a reminder that we have tomorrow will be our next community call project. So anyone who wants to come to that, kind of there. Also next week, there's going to be a number of presentations at CASCON for anyone who's attending relative to the microjit project.
Thanks, Scott. Is there the OpenJ9 API doc automation? We've had this on for a couple of weeks. Is there anything new or ongoing that needs to be called out with this?
I think the steps required are now fairly well understood, and I think we'd like to go for 0.24 to have it complete, but that's subject to resources being available. And I think Adam was about to speak there about that. Sorry, Adam.
That's fine. Yeah, I was working on it and then it got pushed back. So I think we can take it off the agenda for this purposes. So I think we're sort of hashed out on what needs to be done. Just a matter of getting the time to do it.
And given the lightning talk from the CANOSP group, we'll skip over that one as well. The compressed and default story we're planning to cover next time. The question then Andrew raised on Slack was that next week our meeting conflicts with Remembrance Day, at least in Canada. So I'm wondering if we should skip next week's meeting and proceed to November 18th for the next one of these. Is there any concerns with doing that? Okay, it sounds like general agreement to skip next week and to proceed on November 18th. I see that the stop ship criteria issue was added to the agenda. I think we can take care of that offline. So please add any comments and questions into that issue, and we can use that to track the discussion on what meets the stop ship criteria. Anything else that we need to take care of today? All right. Then thank you, everybody, and we'll have our next call on November the 18th. If there's anything critical that comes up along the way, we're always on Slack or continue discussion through the issues as well. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much.